Is it that time already? Yes, it is. Welcome to Geeksvana Live. Thank you very much for joining us. I hope you're all extremely well. We are back and back at it, as it were, and starting off, obviously, with one of our regular live Q&As. If you've got any questions, as per the pinned chat, and people have already started asking questions, do tag at Geeksvana in the chat because it does help us find your question more easily in the often busy live chat. So yes, so any questions you've got, drone use, regulations, advice, tips, anything you want to know whatsoever, please do ask, and we will try our best to get through all of them this evening and see where we go, basically. But we're looking forward to this one. Without further ado, we're going to bring my partner in crime in. Partner in crime. It's Mr. Deg. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Yes.
Excellent. Yeah. The shirt is looking rather fun this
evening. It's a bubbly one. Yeah.
It is, isn't it?
I looked in the wardrobe, thought I haven't worn that one for a while. I will wear that one.
Nice. You've got to give the people what they need.
Absolutely.
Haven't you really? So yeah. Exactly. So we've got a range of questions which have come in via email. We've got questions that have come in on DMs and obviously comments on videos as well. We've also had some questions in the pre-show chat that I have furiously been copying across because unfortunately often they get kicked out, as it were, by YouTube when we start. They haven't this time, so we're going to start with those so that they're here. People asking about ads. Yes, unfortunately, you will see some ads, although I've now put the delay on them. The way it works is when we start, some people will get one, unfortunately, and we've now got the delay, so I need to keep an eye on that in the top right of my little screen to re-delay it. But it looks like we have a way of fixing that ongoing, so bear with me, and that should actually happen for hopefully the shows from next week. But I'm still getting myself back into things this week, so yeah, slightly behind on that. Right, so the first one is from Say What Drone. If I add accessories to my Mini 4 Pro and take it over 249 grams, do I need to do anything else other than have a flyer ID? Do I need to take the A2 CFC to fly closer than 50 meters to buildings? Really great question. Thank you for asking it. There's a couple of things in there. The 50 meters to buildings isn't really a thing anymore in terms of that. That's more actually 50 meters separation to people, uninvolved people, with your A2 CFC. If you go over 249 grams on your sub 250 gram drone, then yes, you do move into the A1 airspace, the benefit you get of the 500 grams basically by holding an A2 CFC. For those of you who don't know, if you hold an A2 CFC, you can fly drones between 250 grams and 500 grams with all the benefits of the A1 airspace, apart from you are not allowed to deliberately fly over people basically. So you need to avoid flying over. So yeah, essentially you would need an A2 CFC to continue flying in the way that you're probably used to flying your sub 250 gram drone in congested areas. Obviously outside of congested areas, it's a whole other, which will come up on other questions actually, which have already been asked. It's a whole other kettle of fish basically. So yes, so that answers that one.
And for a completely comprehensive answer, yes, you obviously need to register, have the registration number on there, and read the manual.
Yes, operator ID, because you're above 250 does just trigger. It's presumably, obviously, he's already stated that he has his operator. So it's operator ID, flyer ID. Yes, you're correct. That's the only other thing you need.
I took that for granted, but you never know who else might.
No, exactly, 100%. A funny one from John Burns. If I'm flying my drone in the summertime, I'm going to answer it though. And my 31-year-old blonde neighbour goes in her back garden to do some topless sunbathing. Should I just keep filming? Now, I'm very happy that we've got a very sensible panel this evening that wouldn't make any kind of strange remarks on that one and get the entire channel cancelled. So thank you for that, Graham. He says
definitely not.
He says kind of warning.
I mean, I have an answer.
Yeah, go on. Give your answer. Now, I also realise that John is being funny in stating this, but actually, it is something that's worth saying occasionally on the channel. So thank you for bringing it up. But we'll let Graham do this one.
Carry on filming, providing the camera is not pointing anywhere near your 31-year-old blonde neighbour, unless you have her permission before.
Indeed, exactly. Yes, and the the kind of the benchmark there is whether or not you can identify them as an individual from the footage that you're recording. And of course, the fact that they're in their back garden, they're in their house, means that people are more likely to be able to identify them, I would argue, as well. There's a lot more privacy in your own home from that point of view as well. But again, I realise, John, that you are tongue-in-cheek on that one, but it's worth putting because there's some strange footage out there, isn't there, online? It's,
there's the sort of expectation of privacy, assuming it's a garden in which you would normally do that in a private area, then there's a reasonable expectation of privacy. And I'm aware from working with the police that when they approach some OA holders back in the day at a particular event and asked to see their sort of operation authorizations, and these guys were a bit reluctant because of what they were filming, none of which was illegal, but they felt it well, they clearly didn't feel comfortable providing the information, and the police didn't have particular powers at that stage to demand it. And so the policeman just said, okay, well, under the Voyeurism Act, you are,
yes,
it's a nice day, there could be people in the gardens, and I see you have a drone with a camera on it with a zoom. I mean, we could start to look at that side. Out came the paperwork.
Well, exactly, because and that's actually a really important point in terms of drone rules generally, and the legislation around drone use, is that you can be following every single part of the drone legislation to the letter, flying absolutely perfectly, and you could still be breaking other legislation in terms of just general law, like voyeurism, etc. So it's important. There tends to be, and it tends to be more of an American thing than a British thing, but you tend to get people that are flying drones that, of course, over there the police don't enforce the FAA's regulations. So they kind of say, you know, screw you, copper, I'm flying anyway because I'm under the FAA, you can't touch me. Until the police officer says, well, actually, there's a town ordinance that says you can't fly your drone there, or you can't do this, this, and this with a camera here. So here's a ticket. So it's worth realizing that is the case, and actually ensuring that you're not exposing yourself from a legal point of view, from general legislation. Basically, it's
you don't want to be exposing yourself as much as John's next door neighbour.
Exactly. Yes, and John did confirm that it was a tongue-in-cheek comment. Yes. So yes. So Timepiece Bob, thank you for your question. Is a yellow marked zone within a red zone flyable, or does the red zone supersede it? Yes. The red zone would most certainly supersede. The red zone is king. I mean, it depends. There are caveats and subsections to that as well. Actually, let me just get rid of that question in a second. So here is good old drone safety map, and here indeed we do have yellow zones within a red zone, and a fairly important red zone, being that it is the good old London City Airport, who actually I bring them in here because I know from other professional operators that fly in the area are pretty good in terms of how they treat drone pilots. They tend to treat us like actual pilots, don't they? And
they do
give us open access to their airspace, and are very reasonable in what they do, which I suppose that might be to do with the fact that they deal with such congested airspace as well. The fact that, you know, that's a drone coming in probably isn't that big a deal for them, bless them. But you can see lots of yellow dots here, which obviously is talking about cranes and the area of increased risk, which is London City, etc. But certainly that red zone is the killer, as it were, in terms of that's a proper FRZ there. And yes, you certainly would not be able to do anything inside there. These are really backups. Now, it is worth checking whenever you see different coloured zones, because sometimes you will see a yellow zone and it looks like it's nothing, but actually, again, it could have other implications in terms of other legislation. It could have implications of something that's coming up to be a blue zone in the future and that type of thing. Or it could be, as this is saying, it's informing you that St George's Hospital is there and that type of thing, which is very, very important as well. So it's, you know, there's helicopter routes, etc. there in yellow, which again, technically, you know, you don't have to do much else apart from good airmanship as a drone pilot, but you know,
but it's good to know. Good to know that there.
Exactly, because they will be used. So it's very difficult, because often I will get someone that will email us and say, "Can I fly here?" And I often, sometimes I have to send a message back to say, well, I can't really answer that, because although Drone Safety Map says it's clear right now, I've not been to the site, so I don't know if there's anything locally stopping you from flying under Article 241 and other issues. But equally, that could change within a few days. So actually, there is no, with things like temporary restrictions, there is no carpet response to that. It's essential.
You do need to understand that airspace and ground risk piece, don't you?
Yes, but so yes. To answer your question simply, yes, the red zone, the FRZ certainly supersedes everything else, basically. So next one up is Scott, Amok Time Flies. Please can we clear up the minimum separation distances within the Air 3, Air 3S, please? People, buildings without A2 CFC. I don't want to set Ian in London off yet. Yes, well, obviously at the moment here in the UK, the fun little C label that is printed on the bottom of all of our wonderful, slightly larger drones means for nothing, unfortunately. Under legislation, that is. So at the moment, it has no legal benefit whatsoever to fly those drones in the UK. They are all legacy drones. So the Air 3, Air 3S are just as legacy as a Mavic 3 Pro or anything else, basically, that's over that 500 grams with an A2 CFC. So there is no benefit from that point of view. The only thing that the A2 CFC will give you with the Air 3, Air 3S is the ability to fly it within congested areas, but also to be able to fly within 50 meters of uninvolved people. Basically, it's the people that's the
horizontal clearance.
Yeah, cylinder clearance. So again, you cannot fly over people with an A2 CFC permission. So it's with essentially, unfortunately, at the moment, who knows what the future may bring. We've heard different things, that C labels will be allowed in the future and C labels won't be allowed, and you'll have to have an OA to use them, or X, Y, and Z. But anyway, at the moment, as it stands, and certainly I would expect for the rest of this year, potentially, the drones like the Air 3 and the Air 3S, it's 50 meters horizontal separation with an A2 CFC. Otherwise, you have to, as a recreational flyer, stay out of congested areas and stay 150 meters away from those congested areas. So it kind of switches from buildings to people once you're inside the congested area, basically.
I mean, obviously, and I hate to say it, because these rules are supposed to be simple, but this is how simple they aren't. Obviously, if you're a FPV UK or BMFA member, then you can fly under Article 16, which then reduces your clearances to, I'm not sure what, because I don't generally fly under mine. Yeah. Or you can go to the trouble of getting yourself and paying for a GVC and an operational authorization.
We don't
fly in a bubble, but
exactly. I don't tend to bring the FPV UK and BMFA Article 16s into these videos. One, because we've got a special video in our drone rules series guide, which is on the homepage of the website of the channel. There's actually a specific video about Article 16, but it is an operational authorization, so it isn't a piece of
I apologize unreservedly.
I find it tends to start confusing people, because then it's the debate, what's a leisure zone and what's not a leisure zone, and all of that fun and games, basically
down the rabbit hole.
Exactly, and we have done that rabbit hole in a few live shows, and there is
I promise I'll stick to open category from now on.
No, you can do specific, and it's worth a note. It's definitely worth a note. But yes, because otherwise every show becomes the same, doesn't it? In terms of we have to caveat absolutely everything. Sort of like, oh, and by the way, an OSC holder can actually fly. Graham can fly in that same airspace up to 1,000 feet, but you lot can't. So yes, the rabbit hole is very deep. And actually, if you're a police officer and your police force has the threat of life, you can then fly beyond visual line of sight, of course, because if there's a threat to life with your drone.
Yeah, and I was chatting to a chap in the army, and he's done 2 kilometers with an USA.
Under the MAA. Yeah, exactly. So yes, the rabbit holes, although would be interesting to about 1% of the audience, are very deep, shall we say. So the next one, Geeksvana. I can't actually see who said this one because it's just gone off my screen. It's Scott again. Attaching a strobe to sub 250 gram drone, your interpretation on flying over urban areas of an A2 CFC. I think I know, but just want to be sure. And geez, I hope I'm right. Yeah, indeed. And this goes back to the similar question that was in the chat just before. That yes, absolutely, attaching a strobe, if it does take it over 250 grams. Now, I have a video coming up talking about what I call micro enforcement and being concerned about it. Do not be overly concerned. And Graham's going to be triggered. His eyes going to start twitching in a minute. But do not be overly concerned about micro enforcement. The police are not hiding in the bushes, ready to come out and jump at you. A lot of legislation that's happening, a lot of things that happen in legislation actually isn't about us flying our recreational drones. It's about other things, about nefarious activity, about much more serious matters. So if you've attached something and you think it's gone 251, 252, now I'm not saying you can do this, but I'm saying it isn't necessarily something that you're going to find police officers walking around with scales in their hands, basically, to weigh your drone. Now, if you put stuff on there and you've got landing gear and everything else, it's gone 15, 20 grams over, and therefore you lose control of that drone because it's no longer some of these landing gear actually change the shape of the drone, don't they? And then suddenly that drone crashes and hits someone's car windscreen and they drive into a bus full of orphans or something. Then yes, probably the weight of the drone will be considered, etc. So don't over emphasize micro enforcement too much. As I said, I've got a video coming up on that. But yes, but strictly speaking, if that strobe does take your drone over 250, and it's worth weighing because different runs of the mini drones from DJI in particular weigh different amounts, then yes, you would need an A2 CFC to fly in the A1 airspace. And in fact, the A2 CFC, although it's A2, gives you A1 access for sub 500 grams. You just cannot deliberately fly over people intentionally. Sorry, I should use the correct word.
I don't know if that's what the question is trying to get at, because it's one of those things where proving intention is really difficult.
Yes.
If you actually overfly somebody, then the point at which that there is a risk is not the point at which you're over them. If you're actually flying and making progress, then it won't come. That's the sort of micromanagement I don't think any police force would want to get involved in.
No. And Article 241 sort of overlooks everything, doesn't it? From the point of view of you must make sure your flight is safe, and it's kind of the first one. I suppose for me, with the between 250 and 500 gram with no intentional overflight, if you were to take off in a park full of people, you can presume that you're probably going to have to fly over people to do anything good with that drone. But actually, if you're in a quiet park and people are, because it's only overflight, you don't have to have any actual separation. So if it's that those people are, the other side of the field and they come towards you, as long as you're not flying over them, you're okay. So it's also the intentional overflight. It's just correct it as soon as you can as well. But basically, mitigation is always your friend in aviation in terms of the decisions that you make, basically. And Scott follows up by saying possibly a good discussion point, flying in A3. So back with our good friend, the Air 3, and someone unexpectedly walks into the area and reduces the minimum separation distance.
Which minimum separation distance?
Yes.
Which one?
Yes, because in the A3, there is no legal separation legislation. There is in the drone code, and it will be interesting to see this ever played out in court, but there is no legislation in the A3 for minimum separation of uninvolved people. In the A3 category, it goes back to buildings and staying 150 meters away from conurbations. But actually for people, there's no minimum separation. So, we'll probably have to leave that one there from that point of view. If you're talking about flying A2 CFC 50 meters from people and you want to use that in an A3 airspace, let's say you think it's within 150 meters of a conversation, so you're saying it's A2, then the advice we got in a CAA interview a little while ago now, about 2 years ago, was basically to take every step you can to realize if people could come out. So for instance, don't fly over the entrance to a factory or a school or something and fly because there's no one coming out. You could probably expect there will be people coming in and out of that entrance. But if you're flying over, let's say, a row of houses and there's nobody in the gardens and that type of thing, then you are arguably okay to do that, depending on other factors. And then you just correct the flight if that happens. It's the same as if you're flying with an OA, isn't it, basically? And someone comes into the field, you can have a spotter that can go and talk to them, or just take actions to reinstate the distance.
it is all that mitigation thing. You know, I've done
Yes.
jobs in London where you know, ideally the client would want you flying down the middle of the road. You tell the client you won't be flying down the middle of the road. You'll be flying over the houses on the other side of the road. And then if anything goes happen, it's landing on the house, not on
Yeah.
the offices, not in the middle of the road. And you know, you stick a different lens on and away you go and you get the shot. And you do it safely and you plan your flights so that they are over things that won't be damaged should it go wrong. And I always assume it's going to go wrong.
Exactly. Yes. Well,
That way,
yeah, I can understand that. I personally don't, but hey, because I think the risk has dropped so dramatically with drone use that, yes. But anyway, so hopefully that answers that question a little bit. But it does. A couple of those questions do kind of show what we've been saying recently in terms of the messy situation, in terms of just getting a clear answer. Now, to be fair to the CAA, that isn't to screw with you. They're not trying to make things so confusing that people can't fly their drones. What they're also trying to do is keep things open enough so you can. Because the problem is, if they have a definitive answer and a definitive regulation or a piece of legislation for everything that you want to do with your drone, can I or can't I do this? It stops you doing other things. And of course, they want to leave that as open as possible, but then have those basics in there. So the 50 meters rated CFC is really there, in my opinion, to stop people flying right into people's faces with their very large drones, basically.
As we say, it's sensible stuff.
Yeah,
it may not be in the law, and as you say, every circumstance is different. If I'm taking off and somebody's within 50 meters, but I'm flying away from them, that's far safer than if I'm flying towards them, or
yes,
you know,
exactly.
So it is absolutely flight specific.
Yes, exactly. So the next one, hover check, and thank you everybody for asking some really great questions. It's always good to flex the mental and to remind ourselves as well sometimes, because you can see us working it out and thinking, actually no, I'm also forgetting. We're forgetting that. So yes, hover check.
Say we're making it up as we go along.
Who asked Gav? Never. Hover check, Geeksvana Graham. Any advice when starting up a drone business? Do I need to log flights if flying 249 gram drones for jobs? The only thing in legislation you need is the correct insurance. As someone flying in the open category, you would not require have an ops manual or anything else like that. We are actually working in the background on a product for this that will give people in the open category a bit of an ops manual and a bit of a thing to log flights and that type of thing, and also for maintenance, etc., etc. But it will be a obviously completely voluntary thing that people can download for free and be able to have to be able to use to give them some kind of confidence that perhaps the OA holders get. But yeah, there isn't anything, but it's always worth it, isn't it? It's always worth logging things.
What I would say is, you know, when I started off, I logged all my practice flights, and I was going for what was an NQE recommendation there, or a GVC equivalent. And I knew I was going to be doing that and setting that up with bigger drones. So I was going into what's now the specific category. But I would still log those flights, because at some point, if you want to get started, if you do go into bigger drones and go down the GVC and operational authorization route, then you will have a history of flights. Now, you don't necessarily need those. In fact, you don't need those to get a standard PDR A01. But in 2 years' time, you might want to go for an OSC or a SORA-based operational authorization, and you will be able to evidence a number of hours in the air. And it doesn't matter if it's on a mini sub 250 drone, it is still time in the air and on the sticks. And that can be useful in terms of evidencing experience. So
exactly.
I would log them.
And apologies to Hovercheck, because they also gave us a $2.99 super chat earlier on. So I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. I think it's a little cat waving. So many thanks for that. I'm terrible at mentioning that. You're supposed to. YouTube always sends us these emails saying how to make more money with your channel. Make sure you make a big deal of someone sending you a super chat, which it is, because someone sent me actual money. Thank you so much. And that's also from a channel member that's already spending a monthly amount of money to support us. So thank you, CJ Drone Photography. I really, really do appreciate that for the $2.99, and Hovercheck giving his 4-month check-in at the very specific network. So thank you. Remember, guys, smash that like button, and I'm reminding everyone to smash the like button. Which thank you for doing that. But yes, well, I always forget. They always say, "Oh, remember to do this," because then people will send you more money because you've thanked people, and I forget to do it because I never want to ask people for money. But there we go. It's yes. But thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. So the next one is Duncan Lord. Is actually not a question, but I just want to highlight it and say welcome, Duncan, to the hobby. Has a proud owner of a new Mini 4 Pro, about one flight under belts. So yes, excellent. Beginner in this hobby. Fantastic, great choice of drone. Fantastic choice of drone. Enjoy it. May you have many happy flights. Enjoy the hobby as fully as you possibly can. And then, of course, we get dragged back down to earth by Dan the Drone Man, the next one, saying, "Can I fly my drone ... on the back of another drone?" I think you might need an OSC for that. Would you reckon? Could you imagine putting that OSC application together, Graham? Graham, are you volunteering for free? No. For free? Dan the Drone Man is a paying channel member. Are you volunteering?
I'm not doing an OSC for free.
but not only am I asking you to do one for free, but I'm asking you to do one where you can fly a drone on the back of another drone. I suppose he's not technically saying that you're going to take off with that other drone. So it's just a payload, isn't it? So yes, you could do that with an OSC. There you go. You get a serious answer. Did you think you'd get a serious answer? But there we go. So thank you for that one. Let me have another look and see here in the chat for other questions. Yes, Mojak, for people who don't know what is an OA, very good point. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Operational authorization, which is the open category, then you've got the specific category, and you get an operational authorization to fly heavier drones in congested areas, basically. So you can fly things like, if you were to fly this Inspire 1, which I wouldn't because it would probably be dangerous these days, and other larger drones in congested areas with 50 meters bubble at the moment. So yes, it's an operational authorization from the CAA to allow you to undertake certain types of risk profile of flight, basically. So yes. Yes, Clive Clarkson's asking about the mass letter drop, the CAA to our MPs. Got an email from mine. She'll be planning to talk to her fellow MPs and raising this in the Commons. Excellent news, thank you. We've had a lot of response to this. We have had hundreds of copied emails in. We've got an update show coming on this, which is probably going to be early next week. And we're going to give you lots of figures in terms of the amounts and also some of the bits and pieces. Sorry, people keep making me laugh in the chat. That's the problem when you do live shows that are based on what's going on in the chat. It doesn't help, does it? Because people start making jokes. Yes, we'll bring you all of the update, all of the numbers, etc. But it's impressive. We have ministerial responses. We have Secretary of State involvement. We have all sorts of things going on. It's still going to be a long battle, as all these things always are, and an incremental battle as well. But we're getting somewhere. So thank you, everybody. But there will be another one coming soon. And Simon's talking about his previous question, but I didn't actually see that one, but I think the chat has jumped down. Okay, here we go. Simon, what do you chaps recommend when a NOTAM is shown on AA with zero contact details, but it isn't on notam.info, but has a NOTAM number that shows nowhere else? Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. This does happen sometimes, and I think it might be a mix up between the different systems, because of course we do have different systems that are all coming together to then show something on Altitude Angel, on Drone Assist, and often it will use it. But if you fly as much as someone like Simon does professionally and his colleagues, then you're going to come across these quite a lot, basically. It's an interesting one, isn't it, from the point of view, I would probably, depending on the NOTAM text, if it's a warning, I would maybe make some inquiries, maybe do some Googling to try and find out who is operating in that area. But I would follow the instructions of that, and then where possible, basically. But have you got any other advice if there's no contact details?
Not really. If there's no contact,
so difficult.
It's down to whether or not you can track them down from the other information on the NOTAM, and we get it the other way around, don't we? Where I think we've done a flight. I've certainly got evidence of NOTAMs that I've put in for my flights above 400 feet where they haven't shown on Altitude Angel. so I've sort of had them down on my risk assessment from NOTAM info.
Yes.
So it is difficult. I wonder if half the time this is why GA don't bother looking at them.
Possibly
Did I say
so.
that?
Yes.
Did I say that?
Well,
I think
it's a
it
shame
comes
because it's actually a really important system that basically
it's
lets
a great
people
system,
know,
when it works,
what's going on.
great, yeah.
Exactly. So, and next one up, I did have one here. Yeah, Clocks, good to see you. Clocks, hope you're well. I haven't seen you for a while. I wonder if documentation laid out like the highway code might help with similar language, should, must, etc. This man is your man in terms of using should, could, would.
Should, must, will,
could.
Shall.
It's so important. And yes, we are campaigning heavily for this kind of thing to, because obviously we have the drone code, but then the drone code is, the language is different to the legislation, is different to. And yes, I agree with you. It would be wonderful to have one true north, as it were, of information for drone users, especially recreational, and it's just spelled out in the should, must language, etc. I agree with you.
Apparently, although I'm anti-regulation, apparently, according to some, I have pushed very hard on this on something called CAP 722H, which is the Bible for PDR one for the OA holders, and they had a nice description of, at the beginning, must, mandatory, should, almost mandatory, you got to have good justification, may, it's up to you, and then they included about 34 clauses with the word shall in. And instead of changing them to must, which is what they meant, they added shall into the definitions, must or shall. This sort of thing really does grind my gears, as may come across.
Indeed, because it's not us that we can interpret these things, we can send emails, we can find out what's going on, but it's the poor old end users that get clobbered with these things, where they're left there thinking, I genuinely want to fly my drone responsibly, but I don't know whether I can definitely do that or not. It's crazy, but there we go. Sunny Jim, can I fly on a residential street to film the front of a property with a sub 249 gram drone? Yes, you can. As long as obviously everything else is correct, it's safe. There's no the flight of your drone is reasonable. The height of your drone is reasonable. That type of thing. Then yes, there is nothing stopping you doing that. It's a perfectly permissible. It would help if you had permission to film the front of that property.
If that property is a safe house, expect guns.
Talk about rabbit hole.
But other than that, I'd say no. Should you,
on the same show, let's just
you must.
one moment. You can tell we were out of practice. So on the same show where we talk about not worrying about micro enforcement and going over the top, Graham then has everybody now worried flying their drones as to whether or not they're flying over a safe house and they're going to get guns in their faces. So it would be extremely unlikely. You're more likely to get a tap on the shoulder for that kind of thing, which obviously I presume you're talking about National Security Act and prohibited places. But yes. And of course they don't appear on the maps yet. So it would tend to be nice conversations at the moment. So yes, that's good. Thank you again for everybody that's wishing me well for returning from the health. I really do appreciate that. Thank you. Michaela has given a super chat, 199. Instructions unclear. Send more chats for why. Yes, very good. Don't you start that again. CJ Photography, Drone Photography, is then confirming his membership for 19 months. Thank you, sir. And so is Amok Time Flies, 20 months. It says, oh, go on then. Thank you, sir. And Simon Stickland is gifted a membership. Thank you, Simon. I really appreciate it. And Chris Dalby was the recipient of that. I won't say grateful because I don't know if you would be grateful for it. But there we go. I promise the next Q&A will be more serious. I apologise. Yes, exactly as Clive is saying there. Oh dear, I'm going to be nicked. I've got a strobe. My Mini 2 is 251 grams. Yes, stop it, Michaela. The the police officers with their standard issue drone scales will be out to get you 100%. You watch someone now go through the courts next week for a 251 gram drone. It's the kind of thing that happens, but there we go. The irony.
Local gravity does vary.
I hope there's no police officers watching now that are like, do you know what, I'm going to go and prove him wrong.
I will get that one.
So yes, exactly. And yes, I mean, some of this, and actually Dan the Drummer said that is what the drone code is for, but the CIA have no idea what they're talking about, which is why it's a mess. And that's exactly it. If we had a good, concise, and true drone code, then yes, I agree with you. It would be very helpful. Sorry, I keep saying this evening. I do apologise. Other people explaining what, and that's what I love about this chat as well. Other people are explaining to others what the answers to questions are. Absolutely fantastic. And there you go. FPV Freedom UK has answered the question for you, Graham. 30 meters. FPV UK Article 16. And
thank you.
15 meters for takeoff landing with extra mitigation as well. But yes, there you go.
And that's a bubble as well. So
that is nice. A wonderful bubble, yes. And no matter what death machine you're flying. So yes. James Emery says, I'm reasonably intelligent, so it makes one of us, but the legislation is confused by the drone code and the so-called advice of knowing the orientation. If it cannot be understood simply in 10 minutes, then it's useless. There you go. I think we're just going to put that on the homepage of the channel and stop making videos, basically, because that is exactly probably how we feel in 2025, basically. It's definitely a thing, shall we say. Yes, let's say thank you for doing that. Okay, Michaela, stop it. Another 199 super chat. MB Visuals any member for 2 months. Thank you. Tazzy getting in on it. One of our senior moderators, £2. Okay, I'm getting jealous now because you do get little love hearts. Look at the little love hearts you now get in the chat when I heart your super chat. It does look pretty cool, doesn't it? So, Michaela's asking, and she goes to the front of the queue because she put a super chat in. If an airport has no contact info and is not connected, how do I get clearance? Doncaster. Well, that's an interesting one now, isn't it? Because, of course, we have something interesting going on up to north. Well, it's up north to me.
Going on there, isn't there?
There is.
I saw a post on this the other day.
So you have Donny here, obviously, and now is this the technically that isn't the closed airport, is it?
I think it might be.
Yeah. Okay. If for instance, you're coming on here, and obviously Doncaster, Sheffield, etc. I can't remember if
Doncaster, Sheffield, EGCN. Due to the surrendering of the aerodrome license and withdrawal of the provision of ATS has been closed since the 2nd of December 22. Following changes are applicable with immediate effect. FRZ deactivated.
Yes. So although it still shows on Drone Assist, which will obviously be a thing to protect them, and to the fact that it's taking one of those things off the AN 5.1 is a significant process. That's basically it. It's extremely unusual because even the ones which are little yellow circles, which are flying fields and that type of thing, they will tend to have a telephone number and that type of thing on there as well. So if it does, I suppose the answer there is if it has no contact info, Google is your friend in terms of finding out what's actually happening there, and seeing if whether or not it's still active, etc., and that type of thing.
I think the problem is that the AIP gets uploaded to Altitude Angel, but the supplements don't, and this at the moment is a supplement.
Yes, exactly. So, and it because technically an FRZ being put into place is actually a piece of legislation in itself. So of course the same thing happens when it disappears. So it's a more substantive piece of work basically. But that is a good one to mention actually, Michaela, because it is a very specific issue in the country at the moment for Doncaster. Hopefully they get something up and working again, and hopefully that all comes out. That chick Stephanie, hi, thank you for the kind words earlier. I'm taking my Mini 3 later in the year to the Lake District. Drone Assist shows nothing, but searching the web says no because of bylaws, etc. Can I fly? Is the Lake District under one of the parks? Now, the issues you have here is one of the big issues you have here as well, because is there a lot of national trust? I need to bring my National Trust map up. Yeah, the Lake District. There's obviously, the Lake District is National Trust essentially, so it is a National Trust location. So you're going to find a lot of lands owned by them. At the moment, the National Trust do not like us drone flyers flying or taking off from their land. They can't stop overflight. So if you're on someone's private land within one of their parks and you want to fly over the park from that land within visual line of sight, you can do so. But yes, now, how does that work it's very difficult for me to talk about in terms of real practicality. So in terms of how does that work for, in terms of law, etc. It is a bylaw, and it's also the landowner stating they don't want you to fly. Often what you'll find if you're flying in a location that is within one of their zones, then you can do things like flying from a road or flying from somewhere which is just outside of their land. You'd be surprised that even within places like the Lake District, actually how much land there is that isn't actually owned or controlled by them. So you have to pick your flights and be aware that although I do not recommend that you fly within National Trust or from National Trust land, if you did so, you may get approached and asked to stop doing that, basically. So just be very, very wary of that, basically. And then, yeah, as Paul, Steel City Drone Pilot, hi Paul, is saying, by law, the max penalty, £60 fine. But again, it's, people do want to avoid doing things that they're not supposed to be doing. So I can understand why you'd want to check that. Going somewhere beautiful to take photos and getting in trouble for it is not anybody's idea of a fun Sunday.
I hesitate to use the line, "Don't tell me your name, Pike."
Yes, exactly. So yes, and just remember, with anything with landowners wanting you to leave, respect it, and just remember it's when you start to object that it becomes, is it aggravated trespass? There's all sorts of thresholds that need to be met for that to happen.
Yeah, just be a nice person,
but keep it civil, both in terms of the offence and also, of course, your conversation with them. So yes. Hopefully that helps a little bit, because it's a bit of a difficult one. Andrew Bird is asking, is it worth redoing this year? My A2 CFC with legacy rules end this year. We don't know yet is probably the easiest and most honest answer to that one, Andrew. Mine runs out at the end of the year, which is quite handy because it's obviously when the legacy transition period currently ends. Are we going to see a consultation for a major change in the open category and therefore general UAS regulation consultation, and it go through Parliament and go through all the stages it has to go through and come in before the end of the year? I find that highly doubtful. I wouldn't mind it because it means a lot of shows and a lot of videos here on Geeksvana. It will give me a lot of content to make. But personally, Graham, how do you feel? I'm not sure we're going to see that, are we?
It's secondary legislation, isn't it? So could they use secondary legislation to make sufficient tweaks? I mean, they can certainly do it.
A tweak, though? I mean, yes, they could end it and bring in C and allow us to fly C class. Of course, there's nothing stopping them from doing that. So I suppose the answer there is it's unsure. At the moment,
there's so many ways they can cut this one. What's frustrating is that we're essentially in the last year of it, and there's no news.
The last year of the extended period as well.
Of the extended period, yeah. So people are being asked by RAEs who have you've got to put food on the table as well. They're being asked to pay money for which is hard to come by at the moment, for essentially what is a luxury for 5 years, with absolutely no guarantee that it will last more than 10 months.
Yeah.
Come on, regulator, tell us what's going on. And if you need to put pressure on DFT, please do so on our behalf.
Yeah, I mean, and we are, we are still struggling with all of that position of the we're going to be part of the ASA, we're going to adopt, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. That changeable period that we've had now for over 4 years is still impacting us, and we're now heading towards another one of the deadlines. My personal prediction is I've got no idea what's going to happen, because as Graham says, secondary legislation could change things fairly quickly, in fact.
Very, very quickly, yeah. What I would say is that Amok Time Flies, I think, has just given some absolutely excellent, statement, which I just seems, there we go. excellent, great. It's A2CFC is still great knowledge, even if you don't pay for the exam. Absolutely spot on. If you do it, whether you pay for the exam or not, you've got some information there on airmanship that will make you better at drone flying, and certainly the safety aspects of drone flying.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I disagree. Yeah, I feel the A2CFC course and exam is so out of date because of the things like it actually causes more problems. I get more emails from people that have just done their A2CFC and are now flying their C1 drone and C2 drone because the course still says the old dates and everything. I think it causes more trouble than it helps.
I think you have to do the right course. I know there are courses out there where they will not put that rubbish.
Isn't it technically still part of the syllabus? But yes, no, indeed.
But
I do say, but certainly the actually having the knowledge is fantastic. Any knowledge is wonderful, but unfortunately, the problem at the moment is that some of that knowledge may take you down the wrong route. And again, that is the wider issue that we're talking about in terms of regulation in the UK at the moment. But there we go, fun and games from that point of view. It's interesting actually. UAV Hub, of course, is no longer Matt Williams in terms of ownership, etc. So I would expect the content to change there quite soon. It's not updated by him anymore and that type of thing. Obviously, he doesn't own the company now. So yes, it's not.
Yeah, the real test will be if there is a big change in legislation. What happens with UAV Hub input? I know that they've still got some good guys there, but Matt's a big person in the community.
He is, and it's definitely a something which is missing from the point of view of the wider support that we used to get as a community from the drone training community. People like Justin down at Osprey, Matt at UAV Hub, they do so much more. And when Matt was active, so much more than the RAE badge that they had and just making money. They do so much for the community and put so many hours into it because they believe in it, basically. So yes, we would be a poorer place without the good RAEs that are out there for certain.
And Justin's still going, by the way. So yeah.
Yes, Osprey drone training is still very much going, and I would certainly recommend them, especially their GVC stuff is fantastic. So there we go. So we have been going for almost an hour, and we've only gone through the chat so far.
The chat questions,
which I'm so happy, frankly. I'm absolutely delighted by. I've got a list of the ones that are off the are off the list that are the ones that are from emails and DMs and everything else. We'll have to save those to next time. But yeah, thank you everybody. It's been an amazing show from that point of view.
It's a DIY show, isn't it? It's great.
It is. Well, and it's also answering the questions of it's answering people what they actually want to know. Can we please get the likes up a bit though? We've got over 120 people watching, and I would like some more likes showing, please. So if you don't mind going over and hitting the like button, it'd be wonderful. Simon, thank you for the £5 super chat. I really appreciate it. Do the regs say we can't power up the props when a drone is weighed as its maximum takeoff mass hasn't changed?
Will reduce. I think they're silent on the issue, aren't they?
I'm going to sleep now. Thank you. I didn't read that. Hang on. I'm 10 seconds off there being adverts, and that would have been Simon's fault for putting me into a pit of desperation. But yes. Thank you for the £5 super chat is all I've got to say to that one. It's much appreciated. You got anything else to add to that, Graham?
I haven't. No, I can't add to it. Having a show that essentially runs itself in terms of questioning. I mean, it's all that time you spend putting together it's a nice little script collection of questions, all the rest of it. Ignore all that. Let's just
This is
brilliant.
This is something I would very much like to add my voice to. And in fact, I'm going to go across and get his channel link. But Amok Time Flies, Scott does some really great videos. There's a lot of how-tos. He focuses in on whichever drone has come out. So he's got a lot of Neo stuff. He's done a lot of stuff on the Avata and now the Flip as well. They're really, really good videos. And Michaela is giving him a shout out for the help that he's given her. But I would like to pop his link in the chat. I'm just going to put Amok so you know which one it is, what I'm linking. But if you get a minute, do go over and hit the like button, leave a comment on one of his videos and say, I'm here from Geeksvana. I'd really appreciate it, because he again is someone that's genuinely trying to do something for the community with his channel, and a lot of his content's really good about night flying, all that kind of thing. But one of the things I really enjoy, it's one of my favorite drone channels, let's put it that way, and I really enjoy how he actually gets out and about and does the things he's talking about and that type of thing. So it's really good, and everything he puts on his channel is really well thought out, so I couldn't recommend it more highly from that point of view. So there we go. So coming up on the channel, we've got tons of content. You can go back and watch yesterday's I'm back stream to find out a bit more about sort of what's going on there. We've got the new channel. I have got something I'm not going to be advertising generally. I do have a new secret YouTube channel, and if you can find it and comment on there that you're a Geeksvana follower, I might have a prize draw for the people that can find that secret channel. Even Graham's raising his eyebrows there. But yes, but we've got some good shows coming up, haven't we, Graham? We're back in the seat, and we've got lots coming up on the CAA story, lots for the specific and open category coming up. It's going to be a fun couple of months ahead. Oh, you've muted. That's fantastic. That was such good timing.
Sorry, yeah, don't ask. Sorry, yes, no, we definitely have got some very exciting stuff coming up. I've got an exciting little project going on in the back room, and I'm hoping to get that launched in the next couple of weeks or so.
Yes, indeed. I'm very flushed this evening. Have you noticed? Perhaps it's the camera giving me a bit more color. I don't know.
You just blurred on my screen.
Okay. Graham's fantastic internet. He kind of knows he's online.
Yeah.
So yes, the
wet string,
the true professional. Exactly, the true professional. Awesome. Okay, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. I really do appreciate it. It's been another one that's good to stretch the legs and get back into things. Thank you for some amazing questions. Really are helpful, because of course this information now stays on the channel for everybody else. We will go through and timestamp and put all the questions in a chapters, so other people can find them from Google search, etc., and that type of thing. It's very cool. But excellent. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it. And I'll give the last words, as usual, to Graham.
Don't give me the last. I haven't got a last word.
Is your last word? I don't have a last word.
I haven't got one.
We're going to stay on this camera until you give us a last word.
Oh, Ratatouille.
Ratatouille. Well, I wasn't specific. I wasn't specific. All right, and just for Paul, Sean out. Bye-bye, everyone.